the good bit was I got to watch TV more.
The good part of COVID for me was I got to stay at home. I do love to be at home. And I did like the quiet, but it wasn't a natural quiet. It was more like a scared quiet.
I got to do a lot of, I started drawing Disney characters, which helped relax me.
Okay, the good from COVID, it was nice to have time off and just spend time at home, and it was nice and peaceful. I don't mind my own company. I started to do crafting, which I found really interesting and relaxing, and I got time out in my little garden to grow some flowers and make that look nice.
The good thing about COVID was keeping in touch with Wise Up and church by the phone. You realise who your friends are and it means more, and you realise just how much you miss people.
That I liked about COVID is that I didn't have to go to school, and I can sleep as long as I want and stay up as long as I want and be lazy as long as I want, watch telly as long as I want, and I don't need to walk my dogs.
The good thing about COVID is that we get to watch TV a lot and stay up a bit late.
The good was all the family time that we got to spend together. This job is a very hectic job where I never stop, so actually the good positive of COVID was spending time with my family and my dog.
Probably more social connection with people, and having a lovely time during the 2 lockdowns, really, especially the first one, together with my family in the garden. We did loads of things. We walked this little doggy here, and we did a walk in the garden as well, which raised funds, which was brilliant. And we got to know the neighbours a little bit better, and that was great fun too. And we did things that we wouldn't have otherwise done, such as going into Lake Coniston and for a dip in Lake Coniston, again in between the lockdowns when we could travel. So lots and lots of good things and lovely things. The gardening club was another good thing, and that wouldn't have happened if we hadn't had COVID. And the gardening club is a little group that we've set up. People are interested in their gardens or alleyways, as some have a lovely little alleyway in Heysham, and just growing plants and seeds and all sorts of lovely wonderful things, and then sharing that. And we did a little festival where we went round each other's gardens and had some tea and coffee, and we raised funds for Wise Up, which was brilliant. So
a good thing for me about lockdown is that I met like loads of my neighbours, and specifically like Kian. We're now, the relationship we have now is like sister and brother. We're best friends, and yeah, I didn't know existed before lockdown, so that was definitely a positive.
I got to see my family in my bubble and watched films, and I did some diamond art.
The good thing is that in COVID I was able to play around with my friends and all socially distance, and I was able to just let loose and have fun.
And the good things are, when I went into school first time, it was a child's club, so we got to just play and stuff. I met Freya and Eloise, my best friends, and I luckily got my transition day for Ripley St Thomas when the other year before me didn't get transition day, so I'm lucky I got to see what it was like, and I now love the school. Thank you, bye.
It wasn't as stressful or as hard as everyday life, like maybe Mother Nature was telling humanity to take a breath and really think about what they wanted to do with their lives. And of course nature could breathe because of the lack of aeroplanes and travelling, and it looked more like nature. And it gave me a chance to do more of my drawings, like I'm sketching a comic book that I'm hoping to turn into a little booklet and sell at conventions. And one day when I was in my flat, I made my own little cafe while watching TV. Like, I had a tea set, I had my homemade cakes, and I had had a toasted hot cross bun, and I looked at new things to make, like I learnt how to make my own magnets from a YouTube video, and I even learnt how to make something called Rocky Roads, and online I could buy stuff like Japanese sweets to cheer me up.
I did like in it about when I was doing work, I could go at my own pace, whereas in the class I'd either be really far behind or really ahead and just waiting for people.
A good thing is that I kept a diary in it, because when I felt sad, I wrote in it, because I don't know, it just, you know, now I know, now I can read what I put and help me feel better sometimes.
So the good thing about COVID is that my life really slowed down. There were still things to do. There was challenging things to do, like learning to make videos and delivering food, but my days were shorter and there were lots more spaces in my life to reflect, to make art, to walk on the beach, to spend time at home with family, playing board games. So the good thing was that I appreciated those things, and I think that since COVID has got a bit better, it's given me a lot more appreciation of like the work-life balance.
The good thing was that like there was no school, and I don't really like school, so it was very relieving that we didn't have school. So that was a good thing. And then the very, very good thing was probably that I got to see my little doggy, because I don't know why, I just went to go see him in COVID, because I was like really upset, because like my mum almost got COVID and stuff, and I couldn't really see any of my friends. So I went to go see my little doggy, but he passed, so I'm very upset.
The good of the pandemic, I started an online course learning French, and also I learnt to bake.
I think that something good about COVID for me personally is I didn't really have to go out much, because I don't really like socialising with people that much. It stresses me out a bit, you know, and I could just do things from inside, and I didn't have to worry about just people. Yeah, that's pretty much it, yeah.
And the good was what we could do at home, and myself and my partner walked for 12 hours around our garden, crazy, from 7 at night till 7 in the morning to raise money for leukemia care, and that was a good memory. Another thing that was good is life was a bit quiet for a while, and that's what I took from the difficult time. The good was to see true colours come from people who went out their way, neighbours, friends, family, to just bring it all together, you know, and I felt that I was really lucky to live in a community where there was so much spirit and positivity.
I couldn't go to school, which is a bad thing. I couldn't go near my friends, and I wasn't allowed to go to my after school club. And I've got a fourth one for the bad things, is that when we did come back to school, it was split in half. So most of my friends were on the other side. Then on the side I was on, there was 2 year 5 people who I usually just played with.
The bad, COVID affected our family. My youngest child has long COVID and has had for nearly 2 years, and that's made a really big difference to our family and how our family lives. They suffer with chronic fatigue, and that's made planning things difficult, and sometimes you can't plan things until the very last minute. So that's had a very knock-on effect on our family.
Friends. And I didn't like COVID because we couldn't go outdoors and see everyone. I didn't like COVID because, I don't know, I didn't like it. I just didn't like COVID because it was kind of sucked and I just weren't bond very well. And it was not fun. It was not very fun. But, you know, at least I don't know, I did go through.
My bad of the COVID pandemic was the fact that I was classed as extremely vulnerable, and I was terrified by the onslaught of this invisible and deadly virus.
The ugliest and unhappiest thing about COVID was I had to homeschool and I couldn't see my best friends.
And the bad thing was about trying to stay away from people.
About lockdown was that I caught COVID. I am not going swimming, not going out, going about.
The bad thing for me about lockdown was that I missed my Year 5 residential. I couldn't go to school, but then at summer we went on this school trip and I'd completely forgotten. But then we'd missed our Year 5 residential, which is supposed to be to Tower Wood for a weekend. And I was really upset because I've been looking forward to it for ages, like since Year 1. And then there was word about cancelling our Year 6 residential. But now that's definitely happening because that was supposed to be a week, but now it's a night. But yeah, at least it's still happening.
A bad thing about COVID was, of course, that people were getting like ill and not really having a great time. I did know someone who lost a lot of people, and it's very sad. It is a very sad thing.
The bad for me during COVID was how poorly people were and how helpless I felt that I wasn't able to get out and help people because I had to shield and I was classed as someone that was vulnerable. And even though I knew that, it really did shock me. So during the first lockdown, I tried my best to help people through online connections, and I had a great team, so even during the bad I felt like there was good. But for me, just seeing the number of cases and how poorly people were, and for me how the cancer community were forgotten too.
Sometimes in lockdown it was hard to not see my friends, and I got really sad sometimes. So at the beginning when we couldn't see anyone at all, and I got really sad, and I always felt quite emotional through it because I didn't know how long it was gonna go on for, and I was a bit scared, because it's COVID, it's a deadly disease. I wasn't really scared about me, but sometimes I was worried about my older relatives.
So the bad for COVID for me was not being able to hug anybody, no hugging, and that hurt me. I like to hug.
I just wish I could have gone to my autism groups, but COVID wouldn't let me, and I couldn't go to Wise Up. I couldn't do the everyday things I was used to, like going to the gym or going swimming, and I missed going out for meals and going out for a few drinks as well. And waiting in line was weird, but I made the most of it by pretending I was waiting in line to go to the swimming baths. I think it's important to have a sense of humour during this time.
I've not liked how I had to stay at home and do home learning because it was really hard to tell what the teacher meant for us to do, and to write stuff down we had to use computers and you had to go through tons of settings just to get one box.
Well, lockdown was very stressful in our house because I live in quite a small house, and all my family were kind of on top of each other, so that was difficult. Especially we had my cousin moving in with us and my sister who had been at university moving in with us, so it was very we were all very cramped. So yeah, it was kind of a lot of mixed feelings. It really made you appreciate like going back into cafes and things like that, which I'd missed.
The bad things were not being able to go out and not having a choice and being told and seeing things on the news.
I guess not being able to see people loved and cared about, family and friends, and having to be at a distance and not hug, which is, I guess, something that I find difficult because I'm a bit of a huggy person, so I didn't like that. That was quite bad.
Bad is that overnight, all of a sudden, all my work just went. There was nothing, there was no support, there wasn't any support for quite a few months. That's bad. The ugly was paying bills out of savings account and watching the savings account go down until any support came in, and the constant anxiety of not knowing when shows would happen. All the sort of false hope that we got that we were coming out of it, and then to go straight back into lockdowns when it was eased and then came back.
My great-granddad died, my great-grandma died at the age of 96.
I couldn't get to see anyone, to chat with any of my friends. I had to because my mum almost got COVID, so I had to stay away from her, so I couldn't really go near her, and because of that I couldn't really see any of my friends, so that was really upsetting.
The bad, I've just experienced COVID for the first time, and that wasn't great. I wouldn't like to go through that again, but to bring in some good for that, had this been 2 years ago, I could have been a lot worse, and 2 years ago I wouldn't have had the vaccine, so at least we're 2 years on, and you know, I've been vaccinated, so obviously I'm not as bad, or I wasn't as bad as I could have been.
The ugly of the pandemic, I think, was the greed shown by members of society emptying the supermarket shelves of the basics without consideration for others, and also the amount of plastic waste, plastic gloves and face masks that were just littering the streets.
And the ugly was the way some people behaved, buying everything they could from the supermarket, keeping it all for themselves and leaving others with nothing. I found that ugly.
The ugly, I think, is the obvious one where, you know, takes a pandemic to bring out the best and the worst in people, and I think, you know, it did bring out some bad stuff with people who just were selfish and didn't stick to the rules, and just believed it was a conspiracy theory and all that sort of rubbish. So,
hello, COVID is ugly.
The ugly that I think of COVID was that I did actually get quite ill, and I am still quite ill because of it. And it's not been a good time. It has not been fun. I have long COVID, and it's not been great because it just hasn't been, it just hasn't gone.
And the ugly for me was how selfish people were, again, showing their true colours, taking things like simple things we need, such as toilet roll, food, supplies. I found that really ugly. I found the anti-vaxxers' behaviour ugly. I think that we all have a choice and an opinion, and sometimes we need to keep that to ourselves. I think for me, had I not had my vaccinations or my booster, I could have got poorly, and I think the ugly thing was that people felt like it just affected them, and it didn't. It affected everybody.
And the ugly part, I suppose, is just being aware of how dangerous it really was, being fearful for people catching it who were vulnerable, being fearful about people catching COVID from me. I know when I caught COVID in September, I felt really responsible for the people that I'd been near those last few days. And I suppose the ugly part is experiencing the fact that many people have died from this. I feel very thankful that I've lived through it, but for many people that's not their experience.
Not seeing anybody, and you just felt like you were being kept prisoner in your own home, and this vicious thing was going round, hurting everybody, and you couldn't do a thing about it. That's what I hated, and not being able just to carry on with your life, it makes you prioritise. So
the ugly was seeing all those people who died, and people who lost loved ones, and people who've been ill as a consequence of COVID. That's definitely ugly and not nice.
There's a lining in your eyes I can't deny. Then there's me inside a sinking boat, running out of time. Without you I'll never make it out alive. But I know, yes I know we'll be alright. There's a devil in your smile that's chasing me, and every time I turn around it's only gaining speed. There's a moment when you finally realize there's no way you can change the rolling tide. But I know, yes I know that I'll be fine. This time I'm ready to run, escape from the city and follow the sun. 'Cause I wanna be yours, 'cause you wanna be mine. I don't wanna get lost in the dark of the night. This time I'm ready to run, wherever you are is the place I belong. 'Cause I wanna be free, I don't wanna be young. I'll never look back now, I'm ready to run. I'm ready to run. There's a future in my life I can't foresee, unless of course I stay on course and keep you next to me. There will always be the kind that criticize, but I know, yes I know we'll be alright. This time I'm ready to run, escape from the city and follow the sun. 'Cause I wanna be yours, 'cause you wanna be mine. I don't wanna get lost in the dark of the night. This time I'm ready to run, wherever you are is the place I belong. 'Cause I wanna be free, I wanna be young. I'll never look back now, I'm ready to run. This time I'm ready.
Don't be mean because of COVID-19. COVID's in the air, COVID's everywhere. I got so sad, it made people bad.
Toilet paper gone, so is everyone. There were good things too, you see, like we got to watch loads of TV. Hands-based face to keep us safe. We didn't get to see most of our friends. Some days seem to have no end.
Lots of loved ones. It's getting worse, you see. The only good thing was playing with toys. Yippee! As we watch time go by, COVID's in the sky. Lockdown was worse. It was a terrifying curse. Vaccines are here. Time to cheer.
When we couldn't go to school, thought doctors were fools. Of course they are not, but it thought my brain would rot. This is so disgusting, like, I hate this, I just want to go home. Billions of people have died, and millions more. How can people just let this happen? This is just so sad. This should not be happening.
Everyone is dying. This is too scary. I don't like it. Meh. But now things are changing. Hope is inside.
And shout to the world, we can all go outside!
Don't give up hope. The end is inside. If we all stick together, we'll all win this fight.
Good evening and welcome to the Wise Up News. 2 years on since the start of the pandemic, and despite the fact that almost all COVID-19 restrictions have now been lifted, the majority of people are still taking voluntary precautions against infection. According to an ONS attitude survey released today, most adults report taking at least one preventative measure against the spread of COVID-19. Around 4/5, that's 81% of people, say they are still washing or sanitising their hands. 76% of people say they are still wearing face coverings, and around 57% are avoiding crowded places altogether. Cases are up nearly 50% as experts accuse ministers of wanting to get rid of data and move on. Since the lifting of most COVID restrictions last month, case numbers are rising again. All remaining COVID restrictions have been removed in England as part of the government's Living with COVID plan. But what does this mean for those working in the health service? Well, after almost 2 years of lockdowns, lateral flow testing, mask wearing and self-isolation, the legal requirements surrounding the coronavirus in England have been lifted. This is the government's Living with COVID plan to transition back to normality. It means that people who test positive are no longer legally required to self-isolate, and face coverings on public transport are no longer mandatory. And now for Sophie and Alex, our roving animal reporters, with some animal news.
You might have missed it, but well-known Australian musician Alex Leahy shared that her cat has been diagnosed with anti-saturation anxiety due to the current circumstances. We have thought a cat could be so affected. According to animal behaviour scientists, the loss of routine and sudden changes in our pets' environments is enough to bring on a spiral of anxiety. In some cases, symptoms can include expensive barking, begging for increased attention without drawing away from humans. We hope this cat got sorted with some time outdoors since their diagnosis. People at care home in Oxfordshire welcomed 2 unexpected visitors last week and took some pictures which should definitely be on their Christmas cards. Charlie and Pringle, the Humboldt penguins, walked around the lounge of Spencer Court greeting residents, posting by the chairs and even sitting on several laps. They got even just in time too, as 2 health secretaries announced today that people in care homes will soon face new limits on visitors to slow the spread of Omicron variant. If the new rules pass Commons tomorrow, as they are expected to, then residents will only be able to have 3 nominated visitors from Wednesday, and there will no mention of expectations of penguins in the legislation. Back to Soraya.
And now for some happy news with Rainbow Laura and Cuddly Claire.
Happy news with Laura and Claire. We share the news because we can. I'm Rainbow Laura.
And I'm Cuddly Claire.
And we're here to show you that it's not all doom and gloom.
Not all doom and gloom.
And how, Claire?
We're going to do it in song.
Laura's phone line buzzing hot. See the joy that Wise Up's got. Caring, sharing, keeping close. Kindness chases a COVID dose. Happy news with Laura and Claire. We share the news because we care.
Online talent shows. Last. Online talent shows. That was gone, sorry.
We'll be with you after these technical difficulties.
We've got a technical hitch, everybody. Sorry about this.
Singing,
dancing, show your... Oh. maybe not, it's just an idea. I got my chance to be a cat, mask made of felt and a saucy hat.
Happy news with Laura and Claire. We share the news because we care. Captain Tom, what a star. 100 laps? Wow, that's far.
Round his
Garden, lap by lap. 100 years old, what a chap. Happy news with Laura and Claire. We share the news because we care. Clapping for the NHS. Rainbow shining on the glass. People helping out en masse. COVID brought out our best. Happy news with Laura and Claire. We share the news because we care. Start of lockdown, a COVID play. 2 years later, it's here to stay. Finally performed at Sefton Road. Off our minds. What a load. Back to the studio.
Please don't write in. Sorry about that technical fault. And now for a poem. We feel these words express our feelings. COVID-19, I am so over you. A killer now, they say, just like flu. You have taken lives and stolen moments, made people feel they are wedged to the sofa, frittered away hours, some have lost jobs, conflicting messages, feeling alone, eat out to help out, no, just stay at home. Hands, face, space, have you got your mask? Queue for supermarkets, living with COVID, been here for 2 years. Loved ones gone, memories shattered, but have we realised what really mattered? Time with family, less work-life stress, trying to bake and making a mess. What is your COVID story? Terrible pain, amazing glory. For some it was great, some missed out. What have the 2 years really been about? It's different for me and it's different for you. So share your COVID story, be brave, let us hear the good and bad and terribly ugly, the lovely and wonderful and terribly funny. Share in the joy, reflect on the pain. 1,501,200 minutes, 2 years, 104 weeks. Please let us know the lows and the peaks. And now here's Gareth with your Wise Up weather.
First, I would like to say some jokes.
Oh, not again, please. We're on the television.
Before the weather. I thought you had to wear a mask while entering work. They yelled at me to put on some pants. 2 grandmothers were bragging about their precious darlings. One of them said to the other, "Mine are so great at social distancing, they don't even call me." There will be a wind coming in from the east, so we told people to stay off the beans. Since we all been in quarantine, there'll be jokes. There'll be inside jokes from now on. The sea will boil and evaporate, so swimming rules will be in effect. So yeah, you are advised to check before leaving home. See, the countryside will be brown, and there'll be no living thing left by October. Mankind as we know it will cease to exist. Glass will melt, buildings will fall over. Mars bars will heat up and explode in your pocket. And finally, temperatures are set to tropical levels. So expect coconut trees in your garden. Now back to the studio.
You ready, guys?
COVID. COVID. COVID-19. Yeah, it's COVID-19. COVID. COVID. COVID-19 was an absolute.
I was 12 when COVID started.
Now he's just broken-hearted. Hands, face, space, remember it. Hands, face, space, remember it. Staring at a screen instead of school. Zoom made me feel like a fool. Think I've binged the whole of Netflix. Now I've got to go on a run and get fit.
Ain't no one know how we suffered sitting on Zoom calls while the internet buffers. Horrible viruses spreading around the house. Only life that we see is a mouse. Ain't nobody out on the street. No more people for me to meet. Can't see my friends as the internet bends. The kids getting lazy and the parents going crazy.
The cats run off and the dog's depressed. Maybe I should think about getting dressed. I'm going to hand the mic to my best friend Toby. He's going to spit some bars about COVID-19.
No one liked it. Stop it. Stop.
I try to run, I grow weary. I try to walk, and I grow faint. Oh, I long to soar on the wings like an eagle, but I look down, and I'm afraid. I'm afraid. But you lift me higher, out of the fire, out of the flames. I lost the fear, but you give me meaning again. I'm singing revival, revival song. I'm singing revival, revival song. I tried to find you, lost my way, walked in the darkness in search of day. I'll follow your footsteps to the gates of the city. I saw your face, oh, I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid. Oh, you lift me higher, out of the fire, out of the flames. Oh, I lost the feeling, but you give me meaning again. Oh, you lift me higher, out of the fire, out of the flame. I lost the feeling, but you give me meaning again. Singing revival, revival song. I'm singing revival song. Oh, you give me meaning. You give me meaning. A revival. Resurrection on my revival. On my revival.
Sometimes I just can't take it. Sometimes I just can't take it, and it isn't alright. I'm not gonna make it, and I think my shoes untied. I'm like a broken record. I'm like a broken record, and I'm not playing right. Just cynical, I bet kill me till you tell me on the heavenly phone. So hold tight, come on, come on. Oh, come on, come on. Don't let go. Hold tight, hold tight. Oh, it's alright, you said. I got my hands up shaking just to let you know that you've got a higher power. Got me singing every second, dancing every hour. Oh yeah, you've got a higher power, and she really someone I wanna know. This boy is electric. This boy is electric, and you're sparkling like the universe connected. And I'm buzzing night after night after night. This joy is electric. This joy is electric, and you're circuiting through. I'm so happy that I'm alive. Happy I'm alive at the same time as you. 'Cause you've got a higher power. Got me singing every second, dancing every hour. There's a lightning in your eyes I can't deny. Then there's me inside a sinking boat, running out of time. Without you I'll never make it out alive. But I know, yes I know we'll be alright. There's a devil in your smile that's chasing me, and every time I turn around it's only gaining speed. There's a moment when you finally realize there's no way you can change the rolling tide. But I know, yes I know that I'll be fine. This time I'm ready to run, escape from the city and find